Hi everyone, and welcome to 2017. This is probably, because my other one I'm putting up today I started on yesterday, but this is probably the first official 2017 YouTube video, and I'm kind of wrapping up 2016 by doing my top decks. Now, I think I did this last year. This is not my favorite decks. That can be very different, right? So I had to kind of, how do I condense it down? Okay, what are my top used decks for 2016? Some of those are also favorites, but they're also, I have decks that are, favorite decks of mine that are not my most used decks, and so that's what I kind of did this category on. And so of course I have a lot more tarot than I do Oracle, or I have a lot of Lenormand too, but I ended up doing top 10 tarot decks, top 5 Oracle, top 5 Lenormand, and then some honorable mentions that don't fit into those categories. So let's push some of these out of the way here and start with the top 10 tarot decks, or most used decks, I guess, for 2016. Now let's just get this one out of the way because it's a little bit of a cheat, but I couldn't not, because I've done so many readings with this for myself this past month that I've had it, that I cannot not have this in here, even though truthfully, let's see, yeah, this would have been my absolute newest one, and there's other Oracle decks that may end up in my top 5, but I really didn't have them long enough. Technically this goes in that category, but I've used it so much that I have to put this one in here for myself. This is the Idiosyncradeck Tarot, which you've heard me raving about. I did a walkthrough. Actually, there's probably walkthroughs on all of these. And again, I haven't really used this for other people, but for myself, the top used decks would be these 3. So we'll just kind of subcategory it down a little bit because we can. So my top 3 decks that I used for my own personal self are definitely the Idiosyncradeck Tarot, the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, and the ever gorgeous Margaret Peterson Tarot. I also used this not just for myself, but for clients, especially if they were doing grief readings or those types of things. But certainly for myself, this was these 3 decks. And I've used lots of decks for myself, but if I had to, these are the 3 that really stand out across the over the year. Even though this is only the last month, it's been that impactful. These decks stand out as ones that I used for myself in quite powerful ways. It had quite an impact on me using them. So plus these are just standout decks. I don't know, will I start to read with this with people? Probably at some point. I don't know. Right now it still feels like mine. But this is the Idiosyncradeck, so that's number 1. I'm going to kind of move it out of the way as I go. These are not in any particular order, other than that these are top ones for me as well. This, since I think I bought this in September, maybe end of September, I'm not sure. I know I had it all through October. I have done so many readings with this deck, both for myself and for clients. Almost all of my readings in October use the Dreams of Gaia, and then since then I still use it. It is a very strong deck to read for a variety of different things, and it's just, I could not have a top 2016's decks without mentioning the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. So there we go. Number 2. And number 3, I'll just get these, I should have just left this out, right? So this is the Margaret Peterson. Again, Quantity still high. I use this for a couple different challenges. I use this for myself personally with a lot of healing work. I use this with clients for grief and healing work. And it's a beautiful, beautiful deck. And it certainly has to be in a standout, you know, kind of 2017. This probably I used the least, just in terms of numbers of readings, perhaps, but it's still, for me, a really standout deck for 2016, so I certainly would have to have that mentioned. Start a pile over here. Of course, the Fountain Tarot. This tends to be in a lot of my top of anything decks, but I use this a lot. You know, this kind of is similar to my Powerhouse decks, which I don't know. There may be one in there. Again, I didn't spend a lot of time at it, or else I would not have been able to whittle it down. I just grab. These are the things that jump out to me. So these aren't definitive. This is the only decks that I use. These are just ones that stand out as being ones that were the most used. And this is one of my workhorse ones. It's my neutral ground. It's my Rider-Waite-Smith kind of closest to Rider-Waite-Smith that works for me. And so, you know, I could not have a top. I use it a lot, so which is really what this category is about, my most used decks. So this is the Fountain Tarot. Let's put them over here. This way I can put them away after I'm done. This one I haven't had a long time either, but I have used it a lot. Most of all of my I did a lot of past life readings around Samhain, and around the time that I think I got this in October as well, because I use this a lot for past life readings. But this is to me is a really standout deck. I don't generally, I'm trying to think, I use this a lot for myself too, just for quick, again, more cartomancy if I'm going to do yes or no type things, because you've got the very standout colors. You've got the playing cards involved. Of course, it's very pippish, and so I do like it. The size, if I want to do, ooh, look at a mix. See, this is it, because I use it recently for past life reading, and I use this deck for past life readings as well, and so I need to put that where it belongs. They're the same size, clearly. So, but it's just, I love the full circle back to playing cards, but still having the gorgeous, I don't know why these are whopper-jawed, but they are, but having the major arcana, having the full courts, and having all the pips cards here. It's just a really great deck when you want to focus on elements and numerology, and just kind of go from it strictly in that kind of a way. And it's a great small deck. You know, I need to have a whole video on small decks, because I do really like small decks. So in readings like past life readings where I'm using multiple decks, it's great to have small decks. And look at, they both have trees on the backs. But I love the concept of this. I love the construction of it, everything about this deck. It really does stand out, and I actually have used it a lot. So I definitely, this was a huge thumbs up. I was kind of wondering if it would just be a collectibles, and I was okay with that because I do collect playing cards. So I was okay if this was just going to be a collectible, but I actually have used it quite a lot. So there's that one. Let me put this over there to put back as well. Of course, the Wild Unknown, as you saw from, again, if you watched my tarot decks by categories, this crosses a lot of tarot. I don't need to get them all out, do I? This is the first edition. I have the first, second, and third editions. I use this a lot. There's only 2 cards in here I don't particularly resonate with, which is the 8 of Cups, the 10 of Swords, that I have to kind of talk my way around. But other than that, this is a stunning, there you go. Other than that, this is a really it's a workhorse deck. It's a gorgeous deck. It's a wonderful reader just to bring to the table and get readings done. It's just definitely will always be in my top decks. So that is, what am I at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so I've done 6. Here's the Jeopardy Tarot. This also went into my surprise category. I've actually used this deck a lot since Miss Maureen sent it to me. I truthfully thought it was going to be one that I would just kind of be interested in, but I just kind of in seeing. But I have actually used this a lot professionally. Visually, it's beautiful. And I just find that it reads really lovely. It likes to get in there and do the work for people. I've used it for astronomy, like to do the astrological readings with the 12 houses. I've used it for all kinds of readings, and 3 voices readings. It just I've used this a lot this year, and I really didn't expect to do so. So I definitely have to put the Jeopardy, or however you want to say it, tarot. Let me put these in there. As top deck, part of my top decks for 2016. These last 3, of course, workhorse deck for me. Really, all 3 of them are workhorse deck. I can take these to the table for anything. I've used this a lot this year. There's a reading in my shop where I do sort of a check-in reading, and I use the Druidcraft for sort of body, and I use Shadowscape for mind and or air, or I go about it in different ways, but it sort of has that airy feel to it. And then I use for soul, or for below, as above so below, and then our current frame of reference of where we are, I use the Tarot of the Hidden Realms. So because of this reading, I've actually used these decks quite a bit. This is already a workhorse deck for me, especially in terms of work. This is one I spent a lot of time with, but haven't been reading with it as much in the last couple years. But for this particular reading, I love it, and so it's really, I've gotten a lot of use out of it this year, generally in this capacity. And Tarot of the Hidden Realms, again, I'll use this for just large tarot readings. All 3 of these I will use for large tarot readings as well, especially Druidcraft probably the most, simply, well, these 2 are probably even. I just haven't used this as much just because I've had other decks that I've been using. But because of this particular reading, I've used these 3 decks a lot this year. I also, this just is has to be in a top 10. This simply has to be in a top 10. This was the second deck that I ever had. And so, of course, it also just kind of has to be in a top. Plus, I've actually used them a lot. So that is the Tarot of Hidden Realms, which is absolutely stunning. As I said, it takes you back to this internal seat of your power. I think it asks you to work from a place of power. The Shadowscape is just gorgeous. It's actually, to me, quite a neutral energy, and it consistently gives strong, beautiful, as well as insightful messages, and so it certainly needs to be in there. Let me put these back correctly. And then the Druidcraft is just, it's a workhorse deck. It just is clear, concise. It is sort of, again, a Rider-Waite Smith. It's stands very strong and firm to the traditional meanings, and yet there's wiggle room, and there's a beautiful, consistent pagan, because oftentimes there's pagan decks or Fae decks, but then all of a sudden there'll be the Hierophant being, a pope. It's like, well, that really doesn't work, where this is just consistent, gorgeous, powerful reading deck. So of course the Druidcraft has to be in there as well. So there, and this one sits on my face shelf, so I don't have the box out, but there we have the top 10 again, I have many other decks that I've used over the year, but these are the ones that quickly just sort of came to the forefront as in terms of picking 10 decks that are the most used for 2016. Now for Lenormand, for Lenormand and Oracle, I went with top 5s for the year. These 3 are my currently most used decks. But I used this, which Miss Nina sent me. I think we traded for Lenormand lessons for this Revolution Lenormand, and I used this so much this year. And it's really not, I wouldn't have guessed that this would have been one that I used so much. I was excited to get it because it's gorgeous and I just like it. I'm not entirely sure why I just used it a lot. I really love this deck. I wish the cardstock was better. But other than that, I really like this deck, this little demon guy with the whip. That's, sometimes for me it's just about repetition. A lot of times it is, but he's kind of faded off there and it doesn't affect me. But yeah, this definitely, while I would probably still put it in my top like Lenormand decks, but I use this deck a lot this year, and so it definitely had to go into most used category with Lenormand. Also this vintage Lenormand here. So this is just beautiful and I love it. Again, it's not one I would have known that I would have fallen so much in love with. Yes, Isabel did chew on the corner of this when, which is bad, but I still use it. It's the only one, it just fell down and it got chewed. Thankfully she doesn't do that anymore. She doesn't even go for cards when they fall on the floor anymore. I'm so glad she outgrew it, but I still use this constantly. It definitely is one of my most used for 2016. But currently I pretty much use these 3 exclusively at the moment. A little bit of the other ones. Again, as with all of these, I use almost all my Lenormand decks at one time or another, as well as my tarot, just depending on what I feel like. But these 5 are the most, and certainly right now these 3 I absolutely adore. This may be Lenormand. It is so clean and clear. So this is literally on my table right now. I use the Clair de Lune Lenormand a lot because, again, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning and I love it. What else can I say? And the same thing with the Medea Lenormand. I love this cardstock. Was probably one of my favorite cardstocks for Lenormand. It's just got that gorgeous matte, silky matteness that is so stunning. And it reads gorgeous. It's very clear laid out on a grand tableau. It doesn't riff because of the matteness. I don't get glares off of it or reflections. So I use this a lot. So this is the Medea Lenormand. So that would be my top 5 used decks for 2016 for Lenormand. So there we have those. Now, I also have to put in, because these are, Kipper is not Lenormand. It's Kipper. And there's not a lot of Kipper decks out there, but I do actually do a lot of Kipper readings. And I almost 100% of the time, really, I can't even think this year if I've used any other Kipper deck than this. But the only thing that I would say that this needs to be made into regular playing card size. That's it. That's the only thing I would change about this deck. But other than that, I think it's absolutely a stunning Kipper deck. And almost 99.9% of the time this year, if you've gotten a Kipper reading from me, it has been with this Fin de Sickle deck by Ciro Marchetti, which is available. This is the first edition, but it is available mass market. In fact, I keep telling myself I need to pick up the mass market addition because of the fact that I use it so much. So there is that honorable mention of Kipper, and then I have to put in Deste. Again, that's its own category. It's not really anything. It's Deste, and there's only of Greek or a Turkish version. This is the Turkish version, and I've done a lot. I've been really happy to see interest in the shop with Deste readings, and so I have done a lot of work with these cards this year, and so I definitely have to put these in most used cards or decks of 2016 because I've done a lot of Deste readings. I've done a lot of work with Deste, and so I definitely have to have that in most used decks of 2016. So there we go. Other honorable, it's got its own category mention. Oracle is harder for me because truthfully with Oracle, that's very dependent on the question. It's very dependent on the season. It's very dependent on all kinds of things. So I will pull from my Oracle decks sort of as a just intuitive hit. I'm just gonna, that feels right, I'm gonna grab it, right? So I would say that I across the board pull from my Oracle decks more often, more spread out, and same thing with tarot. It depends on the question, depends on the day, depends on the season, depends on what I'm really fired up using. But if I had to say the most used Oracle decks, they would be these 5. The Animal Spirit by the Wild Unknown. I have done so many 3 Voices readings with this, the Wild Unknown, and this deck. So they definitely, it's based on the elements as well as a hierarchy within, and it just kind of brings across elemental energy and animal energy. This has been the year of animal decks for me. I have a whole nother video just on my animal decks, right? I just, yeah, there's no way I could have top decks, especially Oracle decks, without this one because I use it a lot for 3 Voices readings with the Wild Unknown, as well as for elemental reading that I do, a 10 card that stacks. I use this a lot for that. So definitely have to say that. Definitely the messenger cards, again, both for 3 Voices that I used a lot of, but also just to pull at the end of readings. I just love, again, this has been the year of animal decks for me, and this has a lot of crow and wolf energy, which speaks a lot to me personally. And so this deck, I bought this because Racing from Owl Moon, or not Owl Moon, yeah, Owl Moon, I never know the numbers, but she did a class with this deck, and when I heard she was doing that, I was afraid it was going to get sold out, and so I snagged it when I really shouldn't have been buying a deck, and I never regretted it. I've used this so much. It was definitely a worthwhile purchase. Tao Oracle, you know, it's just one of my top decks because of the light and shadow, because of the absolutely gorgeous imagery, because of the connection with I Ching. It's a wonderful one. If I don't have, you know, very often my 3 Voices readings, if I'm using a certain deck, I know I'm going to use other decks with it because they go together. But other than that, I very often will pull this. This actually reads really well with the Fountain Tarot. When I do the Fountain Tarot, I very often pull with the Tao Oracle. Visually, I don't know why that's the case, but just in terms of reading, it does. So I certainly, it has to be a most used deck for me Oracle-wise. These 2 are actually my sleeper decks and they're both Oracle, and they're both little. Aren't they cute? I've talked about these many, many times, especially if you watch live chats. I bought this when my grandmother was sick, and it so goes against what I normally will buy with Oracle decks, but it's just a hug deck, and I absolutely love it. I've used it a ton for myself. This would definitely go into a self category. I've used it a lot for live chats, pulling cards, and I also just at the end of maybe a rough working or really digging in reading for somebody, just to kind of pull it have a blessing at the end, which is really lovely. Sometimes even if I pulled Oracle for that sort of deeper message, I still kind of pull out a little blessing. So I have to definitely have this as a top standout for 2016. And then the Shamanic Healing, this has been one of my only decks that I have felt like the universe has forced me to buy. I saw it, I thought, not that, I was attracted because of the Shamanic title, but this deck, it reads wonderfully. I use it almost all the time when I do past life readings. I use it a lot with healing, readings to do with healing and grief work, find your path. This deck is fantastic. I almost always pull 3 cards. It's very succinct, and it just consistently comes to the table and provides answers, and I just have used it so much this year. So that would be my 5th most used or top used decks, Oracle decks for 2016. So there we have it. Just trying to quickly kind of pull in those. And again, high access, especially since, I've in the last few months, I rearranged how I store my deck, so it's almost, they look like if I'm sitting here right at my table, I can see, like a library of my decks. And that has caused me to reach for a variety of decks much more often than I did the way I was storing it before, which has been really a great joy. And I will even sometimes be in the middle of a reading and I'll see a deck that says, oh, you've got to go grab a card from that. So I do pull from all my decks, but from this video, it's just sort of, okay, what consistently ended up on my table. So I hope that you found this of interest, and I look forward to seeing what decks come out to play the most for 2017. Have a wonderful day.